Lou Dobbs Market Close is brought to you by MyDiscountBroker.com. Your investments, your way. Log on to money.com/markets for more on the day's market activity.
I'm Lou Dobbs in New York. The markets today rallying once again. The Dow Jones trying to post a triple-digit gain on the day, and the Nasdaq up almost 17 points, trying to stay above 2,000. The S&P 500 up right now up 8.68, and we, of course, as we approach the closing bell on the big board following those averages, GE today announcing it's on target to meet estimates for this year and will top estimates for next year. Housing starts for the month of November reported at an 8.2% gain. That surge totally unexpected by economists. Building permits climbing 5% for the month of November. However, there was some negative news today. Redbook Research reporting the first 2 weeks of December down almost 5%. There's the closing bell on the big board, and that means it is time to go to Rhonda Schaffler. Rhonda?
Hi there, Lou. Pretty strong run once again for the blue chip average. The Dow Industrial will not close at session highs here, but could possibly close again above 10,000. We'll see where the numbers settle out. The market started out strong, hung in there throughout the trading day. Then you see that little push at the end as the buyers came back in before the bell. Broad rally, too. Advancers over decliners, better than a 3-2 margin. Let's take a look at some of the movers here. GE, a high flyer on the Dow. GE also saying it's going to make some acquisitions in the future. That's pretty much par for the course for GE, but the company's new executive saying the weak economic conditions provides his company a buying opportunity. And a couple other Dow names performed well, too. A lot of the cyclicals did well. Caterpillar up $1.40. DuPont up better than $1. Merrill Lynch put a strong buy rating on that stock, said buy it today before the economy rebounds in the second half of next year. You mentioned some of those retail sales numbers, Lou. There were a couple of exceptions on the earnings front from electronics retailers, including Best Buy. Big gain in that stock. Its numbers came out better than expected as people were buying DVDs and digital cameras. Lou?
Rhonda, thank you very much. And software stocks among the best performers over on the NASDAQ. Let's go to Greg Clarkin to find out more. Greg?
Exactly, Lou, and specifically Siebel Systems lending a real nice pop to those software stocks. But no real major corporate news today, any blockbuster news. What we saw was some positive research notes on Siebel. That lent a lift to software stocks. All in all, the NASDAQ composite trades higher all day, finishes with a modest gain, back up over 2,000, about 2,005 or so is what we have it here. Take a look at some of the movers. Priceline.com back in the news. They signed a marketing deal with AOL, Time Warner, parent of CNN. That gives a nice pop to that stock, up 378 on the day. Or up 58 rather. Siebel Systems up 378 after Bank of America says that the quarter looks to be pretty strong. Oracle also gained, and then Cisco Systems posting a 33-cent gain, 19.59 is the close there. So Lou, after a fairly quiet trading session, we look at the NASDAQ right back about 2,000 or so. Lou?
Okay, Greg, thank you. Greg Clarkin. Well, that's a quick check on the markets. Please join us for Moneyline tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern on CNN. Among my guests tonight, Richard Grasso, the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. I'll also be joined by CNN terrorism expert Peter Bergen. We'll be talking about the hunt for Osama bin Laden and Mullah Mohammed Omar. And also joining us to talk about the prosecution of this war against terrorism around the world, former Secretary of Defense William Cohen. All of that and a lot more coming up tonight at 6 o'clock on CNN. Please join us. I'm Lou Dobbs in New York.
It once flew in New York and now in Afghanistan. A red, white, and blue reminder of how and where the war began.
They came to our front yard, now we're in their backyard.
Could Osama bin Laden be in another country's backyard? The search and the speculation go on.
I just think any country in the world that would knowingly harbor bin Laden would be out of their minds.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Judy Woodruff in Washington. At last word, no bombs had been dropped in Afghanistan today as U.S. ground troops conduct a cave-by-cave search in the eastern mountains of Tora Bora. Their #1 goal, to find Osama bin Laden, dead or alive. But Eastern Alliance forces also searching those caves say they suspect that bin Laden may have slipped into Pakistan. Many of bin Laden's al-Qaeda fighters also are believed to have fled across the border. In the search for the Taliban's supreme leader, the intelligence chief of Kandahar says there are indications that Mullah Mohammed Omar may be in a neighboring province. But he says going after Omar is not a top priority for local Afghan officials. U.S. Marines have brought 15 captured al-Qaeda fighters to a detention center at the Kandahar airport. A team of FBI agents is on hand now to interrogate those prisoners. The agents are hoping the prisoners will provide information about the September 11th attacks and any future terrorist strikes that may be planned. As mine-clearing efforts continue in Afghanistan, there is word today that another American has been injured in the operation, this time at the Bagram airport in northern Afghanistan. Officials say the U.S. Army soldier's wounds are not life-threatening. 4 days before he is installed as the head of Afghanistan's interim government, Hamid Karzai is in Rome to meet with the former Afghan king. Their talks are expected to pave the way for the return of Afghanistan of the exiled monarch Mohammad Zahir Shah. We'll have more on the war later, but first we want to focus on another big campaign for the commander-in-chief at a time when many Americans are reeling from recession. At the White House, President Bush has personally been lobbying for a compromise, so-called economic stimulus bill. And tomorrow, he may continue to press his case when he heads to Congress to talk about it there. Our senior White House correspondent John King and our congressional correspondent Kate Snow are both following the story. John, let's turn to you first. What are they saying at the White House right now?
Well, Judy, if these efforts for a last-minute pre-Christmas compromise fail, the one thing is clear: the White House does not want to be blamed for not trying. The president working the phones today, calling some key centrist Democrats in the Senate, also meeting with the bipartisan congressional leadership for coffee in the Oval Office. At that meeting, we were told the president got into great detail about the major hang-up right now, how to deliver health care benefits to those not only displaced by the attacks of September 11th, but those displaced in the entire recession dating back to March. That is the big hang-up right now, a partisan disagreement, a philosophical disagreement between Republicans and Democrats over how to deliver those health care benefits, if you will. The president said at the meeting he wanted a compromise. We are told the Speaker of the House made clear that he wanted a compromise and will negotiate with the Democrats to try to do that. And the White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer saying as the holidays approach, the president will keep the pressure on the Congress.
From the president's point of view, it simply remains too important an issue for Congress not to get the job done and complete. The president believes that there are too many people in America who are unemployed and too many people who risk being unemployed if Congress doesn't take action. And so that's why the president has put his shoulder to this wheel, is working directly with members of Congress and will continue to do so.
Now, the White House says the major obstacle is the Senate Majority Leader, Tom Daschle, a Democrat, but the strategy for now is to go at it once again in the House, have the House pass a stimulus bill probably tomorrow. That would be the second time at that for the House. The White House hoping that one passes with a big enough majority that it puts a lot of pressure on the Senate Leader, Tom Daschle. Judy.
All right, John, I want you to stand by because let's turn to Kate now and find out how all this is being received on the Hill. Kate?
Well, the conversations are ongoing, Judy, and it seems to change by the hour up here, but the readout as of the last hour is that Senate Democrats are not, for the most part, in the mood to negotiate or in a mood to give in. They're fairly dug in on some of their key issues. Now, there are a group of Democrats, a small group, represented among them John Breaux, a Democrat from Louisiana who the White House has been working with. You heard John King talk about the president making phone calls. That's the group the president's tackling and trying to get on board. There are a few of them on board, but for the most part, Democrats are very concerned, particularly about what John just mentioned, about the health care provisions. How do you get health care to all those unemployed workers? Republicans are pushing for a tax credit that would go out to them in the form of a voucher. Democrats say that's a terrible idea.
It's amazing to me that there is the intransigence on the other side when it comes to helping laid-off workers. That's really what this debate is all about now, whether or not we're willing to help laid-off workers, whether we're willing to provide them with unemployment compensation and extend their benefits, whether we're willing to provide them with health benefits.
And Senator Daschle has just said no. He's repeatedly said no, no, no to bringing up a bill that has bipartisan support, that the president has asked for time and time again, that the American public is overwhelmingly for. Recent polls show it's 2-1 that they are behind the president's economic plan, and Senator Daschle has continued to obstruct.
You hear the blame game there. I talked to Senator Breaux about that a little while ago, Judy. He says this blame game has got to stop. In his view, he said blame isn't going to buy anybody milk and bread at the grocery store. Judy.
John, is the president making headway with these centrist Democrats in the Senate?
Well, he doesn't feel his problem is the centrist Democrats. He believes he needs a commitment from Tom Daschle, the Democratic leader, to bring the bill to the floor. And remember, Senator Daschle is the leading Democrat in Washington right now. Republicans have the White House. Republicans have the House of Representatives. So Tom Daschle is under pressure, not only from those centrists like John Breaux and Max Baucus, but also from liberals in the caucus who don't believe President Bush has come far enough yet, or who want to fight with this president over economic policy. There are some legitimate, if you will, philosophical differences here. So the White House goal now is to try to get a better deal in the House and hope that puts the pressure on Senator Daschle, but they're not terribly optimistic here. I spoke to a senior official who was at that meeting this morning with the bipartisan leadership, and he said 50-50 would be the odds he would put on getting a deal right now.
Yeah, I meant by that question enough progress with the centrist Democrats to then put pressure on the other Democrats. But Kate, assuming that is the plan, the scheme of the White House, the plan that they're pushing now, is that going to have the result in the Senate that the president's looking for?
Well, it's difficult to answer that right now because it's hard to tell whether Senator Breaux is going to be able to get all of the centrists. They need about 12 Democrats in the Senate to go ahead and support the White House to be able to get it through the Senate. One thing that they're also working on this afternoon that perhaps could have some sway is if they could get some House Democrats to support them. Right now, in fact, this afternoon, some of the staff members of Speaker Hastert, the Republican, and the leader, Dick Gephardt, the Democrat, are sitting down to try to craft a compromise of their own. I told you there are a lot of meetings going on here on the Hill, but the thought there is maybe if they can get some of the House Democrats on board, that will send a signal to the Senate Democrats. Judy.
All right, Kate Snow reporting from the Capitol, John King at the White House. Thank you both. We appreciate it. And we are joined now by a key player in this whole discussion over the economic stimulus. He is House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Bill Thomas. Chairman Thomas, we just heard Kate Snow reporting some meetings going on between the House Speaker, Dennis Hastert, and the Democratic leader in the House, Dick Gephardt. Are you hearing, is that likely to produce any sort of breakthrough on this question of health care for the unemployed?
Well, obviously, as you reported, Joy, there are a lot of meetings going on. I'm going to have another meeting of the leadership conference. I think it shows the level of desire to try to have something that will pass the House and the Senate that, one, is stimulative, that we can help the economy, and two, certainly that it has a major component for those who, through no fault of their own, have found themselves unemployed and or their health insurance is jeopardized. You know, one of the real concerns about not being employed nowadays is not so much the money, but the fact that you lose your health insurance.
Well, you listened to Tom Daschle, and we just heard a part of what he said just a few moments ago. He's saying the question is whether we, meaning the Congress, is willing to help laid-off workers. Now, we're hearing the same thing from the White House. I think it's very difficult at a time like this for the public to sort out who is, who is right here. Both sides say they want to help the laid-off. Which one is right?
Well, I think what we need to do is to lay out, for want of a better term, your bottom line. A lot of people start with the negotiating position in the hopes of when you come together, and this is the typical way in which we get things done. The House passes a bill, the Senate passes a bill, you come together and resolve your differences. As you know, Judy, one of the problems is that the Senate hasn't passed a bill, and the House passed a bill. But we have made a lot of changes behind closed doors in this leadership conference. But we haven't been able to reach agreement. I just want to give the highest praise to Senator Baucus and his staff. I believe they're committed to resolving this, but the terms of engagement, that is, the rules he has to operate under that have been provided to him, means that he can offer only one plan. And
so
we've offered 5 or 6.
You're saying Senator Daschle, the Senate Majority Leader, has tied his hands? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know who it is who calls the shots over in the Senate. I only know that Senator Baucus has only been able to offer one health plan only, with virtually no modifications. That makes it difficult. The key here is to not say that therefore we don't do anything. We're continuing to meet, as you reported, a lot of different people meeting, because we cannot leave here without providing those who, through no fault of their own, don't have a job and don't have health insurance, and that the economy isn't stimulated in a way to grow.
I'm sorry, Congressman.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thomas, I just want to move on to this question about, there are some who are saying the president has has given ground, as you've suggested. There are some who are saying that from your perspective and the perspective of others who feel strongly perhaps he's giving up too much ground, there is concern that in his desire to get a bill through the Congress that he may give up more than you and other Republicans would like for him to give up.
Well, I don't want to take credit where the president wants to take credit, but we were the ones that talked about adding 13 additional weeks first. I said that should be done because it makes sense. Moving the date to March 15th, which was the recently announced beginning of the recession, was something we said ought to be done. The president has supported those portions of our expanded unemployment benefit package. Where the president has made a major contribution, his people have offered a health care program for the uninsured that really does expand the opportunities for people to get health insurance when they're unemployed.
And so, and Congressman Thomas, why is it so important to go the tax credit route for supplying health benefits rather than the subsidy route that the Democrats are proposing?
Well, we're going the subsidy route. Credits are subsidies that we're saying that you can have an immediate program. The problem is, Judy, the current way that people get health insurance is only if your employer has health insurance and you leave, you can buy back into the employer's program. That's basically the plan the Democrats offered the first day and haven't changed. There are a lot of people who don't get health insurance from their employer. If you get it from your employer, great, we include those in our plan. But there are some who don't get it from their employer, and they need it, and the president's plan encompasses those as well. So we actually provide for health insurance for the unemployed in a greater number than the plan that the Democrats offer. We have a subsidy, they have a subsidy. It's who gets subsidized.
Strong views on both sides. House Ways and Means Chairman Bill Thomas. Congressman Thomas, good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, we've got to get a solution for the American people.
Thank you again. Our coverage of America's new war continues.
Straight ahead, evolving priorities in Afghanistan. Some Afghan fighters consider their mission complete, but the U.S. keeps up its search for Osama bin Laden.
It's going to be tough, dirty, hard work.
Also ahead, wartime politics. The Senate puts its stamp on education reform. As the bill awaits the president's signature, we'll talk with New York Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. And later, a look ahead at 2002. Will the president's soaring approval rating mean Republican gains in Congress?
Olympus Stylus cameras. Performance meets style again. Nothing's impossible. Olympus.
Wish your wife would wrap up the shopping. And you just wish you were out of here. Guys, I think I can help you out.
At $899, a Dimension desktop with an Intel Pentium 4 processor is the perfect gift for anyone. Call or go online today and get a free CD burner or an all-in-one print center.
Dude, I'm getting a Dell.
Honey? Holiday values made easy. Easy as Dell.
CNN thanks you for making us America's most watched cable news network. This year and every year, you can depend on CNN.
Oh boy. How come the bills get bigger and the paychecks never do?
Yeah. I was hoping to get some more life insurance this month, but...
Whoa. You're telling me that you don't have enough life insurance? I thought you were a responsible parent.
I am. I know I need it, but how can you afford it? The answer is QuickGuard from Garden State Life. Affordable term life insurance. The kind that gives you the most protection for the least amount of money. Great coverage, great rates. Check it out. Call this number for your free personalized rates and QuickGuard information. But But no time? No problem. Applying for QuickGuard is quick and hassle-free. No medical exam ever. No sales visits. Just one short, easy application. And you can do it all by phone or mail.
You know you need life insurance to protect your family, and you need it now.
Call today, 800-232-0800 for free information on affordable QuickGuard life insurance from Garden State Life, 232-0800.
Happy holidays from CNN.
These are some pictures of the site of the World Trade Center collapse in New York City. Pictures taken by the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, taken last night and earlier today. In all the digging that has been going on over the last 3 months, in this video you can see that they have come upon a fire truck. At one point, at one place on that truck, you can apparently read the letters Ladder 4. This has to be one of the many, many emotional moments for these rescuers who have been working so hard without stopping every day and every night since September 11th. Meantime, First Lady Laura Bush is saying some sort of memorial should be erected at the site of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in New York. Mrs. Bush said she was stunned by the first glimpse she had of Ground Zero, but she praises her husband for his handling of the matter.
I know how strong he is. I know how disciplined he is. He's very, very disciplined. And the other things that I see that I think Americans are also seeing were, for instance, when he went to Ground Zero on that Friday after September 11th, and when the firemen yelled, "We can't hear you," and he yelled back, "Well, I can hear you, and America can hear you." And that really is the way my husband relates to people. He really likes people, and he's very quick to empathize on the way people feel, and that impresses me. It really impresses me.
You can watch the entire interview with Mrs. Bush tonight on CNN's Larry King Live at 9 Eastern. We'll check this day's latest developments after a short break, including word that some workers on Capitol Hill will be given the anthrax vaccine. Also, the latest on the New York fire at the world's largest Gothic cathedral, and an interview with Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton coming up.
Uprising, buy it on video, a critically acclaimed true story of heroes that had the courage to fight.
We will live with honor, and we will die with honor.
And a spirit that refused to be broken. Uprising, buy it on video, cassette, and DVD.
$34, $51, $45 last month for long distance. How much are you paying? You need Sprint 500 anytime. 500 state-to-state minutes to use any day, anytime for $25 a month. $25 a month is going to help a lot of people. Sprint 500 anytime. The smarter way to cut your long-distance bill. Sign up now. Call 1-800-PIN-DROP.
Was it a snake? No, because champagne's not Corbel.
Corbel, for people who know champagne.
Cancer.
The doctor walked into the room and said, "You have cancer, and it's inoperable. You have only 6 months to live." So I turned to my wife and said, 33 years together is not enough. So I decided to fight, and I started looking for options. Our daughter, who is a nurse, told me about Cancer Treatment Centers of America. It's like no hospital you've ever seen. They treated me, the whole person, not just my tumor, with the latest medical technology, nutrition, and supplements to stimulate my immune system to fight my cancer.
To find out about alternative treatment options at our hospitals, call toll-free 1-800-641-7333.
It's been 7 years now. I beat cancer, and so can you.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America, winning the fight against cancer every day.
If bin Laden is in Pakistan, how should U.S. Special Forces pursue him? Find out the options in Wolf Blitzer's War Room. Van beer companies have been doing it for years, so why not liquor ads on TV? Join the debate in the crossfire beginning at 7 Eastern.
Tonight, CNN's Nick Robertson takes you live to the front line of the war on terror. Get the latest on our U.S. troops, the hunt for bin Laden, and the fate of a people caught in the crossfire. Live from Afghanistan, 8 Eastern, only on CNN tonight.
And now a quick look at some developments on the home front in America's new war. Sources say federal doctors will give the anthrax vaccine to Capitol Hill staffers and police who are considered most likely to have lingering spores of anthrax in their bodies. Some 75 people who were nearby when the anthrax-tainted letter to Senator Tom Daschle was opened may start getting their vaccinations as soon as tomorrow. A senior government official says the anthrax found in the letters to Senator Daschle and Patrick Leahy genetically matches a strain of bacteria maintained by the U.S. Army. But the official says that does not really narrow the possible source of the anthrax in those letters. Officials say the airport in Charlotte, North Carolina is still a mess, hours after the facility was shut down because of a screening device being unplugged. Everyone in the airport gate areas had to be evacuated and re-screened in case they had passed through the unplugged magnetometer. Planes set to take off returned to Charlotte so that passengers could be re-screened. A Manhattan landmark was heavily damaged by fire today, a week before Christmas, and as New York tries to recover from September 11th. There are no reports of any injuries or deaths in the 5-alarm fire at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. It is not clear yet how the fire started. The success of anti-Taliban forces on the ground in Afghanistan has revealed a split of sorts in the priorities of the United States and its Afghan allies. U.S. officials continue to insist there's a lot of work still to be done, including the hunt for Osama bin Laden and Mullah Mohammed Omar. Some Afghans, however, their cities now liberated, have other concerns. CNN's Amanda Kibble has more from the former Taliban stronghold of Kandahar.
Traffic police back on Kandahar streets battle drivers who have for years been allowed to do what they want. The chaos of a carnival to mark the end of the month-long fast of Ramadan. Everywhere, signs of a city determined to turn away from a difficult and painful past. But those responsible for engineering that past are not forgotten nor forgiven. Kandahar's new intelligence chief, Haji Gulalai, says his people know where former Taliban leader Mullah Mohammed Omar is, just 8 hours away west of Kandahar in Helmand province, in the district of Baghran. Baghran is a mountainous, cave-filled area and once was an Al-Qaeda stronghold. But Mullah Omar's capture and punishment must wait, says Gulalai. Right now, there is urgent rebuilding to be done. We have no time to search for Mullah Omar right now, he says. First, we must take care of the internal situation in Kandahar province. The city is destroyed. First, we must make the city safe for the people living here, complete the government, provide clean water, food, jobs. There are no doctors here, no medical supplies and equipment, no schools, no education. We must demilitarize the city. These are our priorities. Mullah Omar will come later. The intelligence community here, insists Gulalai, is watching Mullah Omar's movements closely and waiting. We have special people watching him, he says. They know every move he makes. Even if he moves house, we will know. There is no place for him to run in the whole world. He is trapped, surrounded by his enemies. That intelligence is shared freely, says Gulalai, with U.S. Special Forces here. But the U.S. search for Mullah Omar is completely separate. So far, Gulalai's forces have not been involved in U.S. operations. And what of Osama bin Laden? Gulalai says he has no recent information on bin Laden's movements, but there are some tantalizing hints. About 15 or 20 days ago, before Kandahar fell, Gulalai says he was told 2 local drivers were instructed by the Taliban's core military commander to drive some Arab passengers to the border of Grish district in Helmand province. There the drivers were told to wait for what the commander described as some guests. The drivers say they waited about 30 minutes. Then a convoy of some 45 vehicles approached. The drivers claim Osama bin Laden was in that convoy. They say he got out of his vehicle, made a satellite phone call in which he spoke in Arabic. Then he had a conversation with the Arabs in the driver's car. When the meeting was finished, the drivers say Osama bin Laden and his convoy left and drove away. That, says Gulalai, is the last he heard of him. Amanda Kibble, CNN, Kandahar, Afghanistan.
More on Afghanistan in just a moment, but as we've been reporting, there's a great deal going on here in Washington as Congress prepares to leave town. Those talks are continuing on an economic stimulus package, and a sweeping education bill today passed the Senate by a large majority. New York's Democratic Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton joins me now from Capitol Hill. Senator, thank you for joining us. Was this education bill all that you wanted?
Well, Judy, it wasn't all that I wanted or all that I think that the children of our country need, but it was a step forward in the right direction because we were able to target the money called Title I funds more effectively for the poorest of our children in the highest need districts. And, you know, that's really important for a state like New York because we have a lot of cities, from New York to Buffalo, that, you know, are really trying to educate children who have a lot of needs when they walk in the door.
Senator, CNN has learned, one of our reporters, Dana Bash, was telling us a little bit earlier today that last week there was a meeting in which you and other Democrats in the Senate sat down with Senator Kennedy and urged him not to go forward with this bill unless there was more money forthcoming from the White House. Now that more money was not forthcoming, and yet the bill passed. You voted for it. Did you change your mind here?
Well, Judy, ever since last spring, I have said the very same thing. I believe that we should have both high standards and more resources, and that will give us the kind of results that we need from our school system. And I think we made some real progress. We got more money than initially was offered by the administration. What we were particularly concerned about, though, in the weeks leading up to this vote, is the failure to support the Senate bipartisan commitment to fully fund special education. I was very proud of the Senate that we did, during the education debate, pass an amendment which made very clear that finally the government was going to support local districts in the very big expense of paying for special ed. Unfortunately, the House and the administration did not go along with the Senate's bill, and we, after a lot of negotiation, were not successful in moving that forward. We will be back, however, because as I travel around New York, the cost of special education is something I hear about from one end of the state to the other in every kind of district. So as I say, you know, it was a step forward. It wasn't everything I would have wanted or that I believe is needed, but it was enough that I particularly felt comfortable supporting it because in New York we are suffering from the effects of 9/11. We have a tremendous loss of revenues, and this will bring, you know, hundreds of millions of new dollars into the state.
Senator, I want to turn now to the economic stimulus, so-called economic stimulus plan. The president's pushing very hard. He's working, as we know now, with Democratic centrists in the Senate to try to put pressure on not just on the leader, Tom Daschle, but on you and other Democrats who have wanted a different approach to stimulating the economy. And the president, in so doing, Senator, is portraying Democrats as being the ones who are against those who've been laid off here. What's going on?
Well, I think a little partisan politics may have reared its ugly head because certainly the priority that I have and that many of my colleagues share is to take care of the people we promised to take care of when we first passed the airline bailout bill. If you remember, I sure do, we were told that we needed to do that. I voted for it because I wanted people to start flying again, and I wanted our airlines to, you know, have the support they needed. But we wanted at that time to start taking care of people who'd been laid off, who'd lost their jobs and lost their health care. We were promised that we would get that kind of help, and still we're fighting for it. And, you know, a lot of what is being proposed here has no economic basis. It is not going to stimulate the economy, and it is not really meeting the needs of the people who are most at risk of having been affected by this 9/11 tragedy.
But the president and the White House are portraying the Democrats as the obstructionist here, preventing health care assistance for those who've been laid off.
Well, it would be very easy to solve this. All we have to do is increase the Medicaid matching rate so that states all over the country that are having terrible times with their health care needs, can take care of people, provide extended unemployment insurance, and subsidize the COBRA payments for people who are COBRA eligible. Not with some kind of a tax credit, which most people would not be able to afford, but with the kind of subsidy that the Democrats have offered. And we could have a deal and be home for Christmas.
Senator, two very quick questions. One is the White House is now saying the president may move during the holiday recess to nominate, to go ahead and make some recess appointments, people who you and others in the Senate have not agreed to. Is that a smart move on his part or not?
Well, we'd have to wait and see who he is going to be nominating. I think that the committees handling nominations have proceeded very efficiently. They have certainly confirmed more people than sometimes was done in the previous administration by a different Congress. So I will have to wait and see who is nominated. I'm interested in quality people. I know that the president has a right to nominate those with whom he agrees, but I think some positions call for a more balanced approach, so I'll withhold judgment until I see who the people are.
And finally, Senator, do you agree with your colleague, Senator Schumer from New York, that what needs to happen is for the Super Bowl to be moved to Giant Stadium outside New York City from New Orleans?
I want as many big events in New York as we can possibly get. That includes the Super Bowl, that includes both political conventions. I'd like to see the Congress convene in New York as the very first Congress did in the beginning of our country. I'd like to see the Olympics come to New York. You know, we want to move as much as we can to demonstrate that New York is still the capital of the world, and we're open for business. We want people to come, and these would be good steps to do that.
All right, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, thank you very much.
Happy holidays, too.
And to you. We appreciate your joining us. Thank you. And coming up, we will talk with an official of the Saudi government about how much support there might be in Saudi Arabia if the U.S. next decides to move the war on terrorism to Iraq.
American Heroes is brought to you by AT&T Wireless. Your world close at hand.
This holiday, stay connected to the people who matter most. With the Shared Advantage plan from AT&T Wireless, you'll get unlimited local calling between plan members. So Dad could talk to Mom could talk to the kids, and the kids could talk to each other as often as they like. Start with 2 phone lines for $59.99 a month, and add up to 3 more for only $9.99 each. You can also get up to 5 free phones, with nationwide long distance included and plenty of minutes to go around, all for life. Visit attwireless.com today for a gift that will have the whole family talking.
Have you gotten yourself into too much credit card debt? You may be able to point and click your way out with a second mortgage from Ditech.com. Whether you have equity or no equity, Ditech has a second mortgage with a no closing cost option that may help lower your monthly payments. Why pay minimum monthly payments when you can pay off your high interest debt with a second mortgage from Ditech.com? For fast, friendly service, apply online or call us at 1-800-71-FIX now.
At Bank of America, we really wanted to participate in the Olympic Winter Games. But in the end, we decided to support the real athletes and stick to the things we do best. Like improving your performance by turning your checking account into an investment tool.
Time flies and you are there. Wartime cries and let you care. You understand the world we share. Yes, time brings you closer to living.
As an active trader or a passionate investor, you live in these 4 walls called your brain. Keeping your edge means finding information, lots of it, before the next guy. But it's a complex world out there. That's why there's Life Charts, only from Lycos Finance. Try it free for a month and see the market from a whole new perspective. A smarter, faster perspective. These aren't just live quotes. They're live, real-time, streaming charts. Histories that show you where your stock's been a year, month, week, or split second ago. Because in order to see the future, it helps to look at the past. You'll also get news, research, analysis, and streaming hot lists, all in one place from any internet connection. Look back, see the future in seconds, only with Live Charts. For your free month, go to finance.lycos.com.
United States Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld is in Brussels meeting with NATO defense ministers. Rumsfeld told reporters today that the search for Osama bin Laden and Taliban leader Mullah Omar is moving forward, but he said the process will take time.
We have reduced the number of areas within Afghanistan where they're likely to be. Those areas are being attacked from the ground by Afghan forces with the support of coalition forces. They are being attacked from the air, and additional prisoners have been taken today. Additional ground has been covered, and progress continues to be made, but the task is still ahead of us, and it should not be considered that it will be accomplished in a short period of time. It's going to be tough, dirty, hard work.
Rumsfeld also had a warning for those NATO officials. He said the attacks of September 11th could be what he called, quote, a dim preview of what is to come if terrorists gain access to weapons of mass destruction. Well, the complex relations between the United States and Saudi Arabia have been tested by the events of September the 11th. For more on Saudi Arabia's role in the war on terrorism, I'm joined now by Adel Al-Jubeir. He is the Foreign Affairs Advisor to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Thank you for joining us again.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You and I spoke at CNN on Sunday night, and I want to ask you to go back to this whole question of whether Saudi Arabia, the perception by some in the United States that Saudi Arabia is not doing enough to crack down on those Osama bin Laden sympathizers in your country. What do you say to those people who say you need to do more?
Oh, absolutely not true. We have been victims of terrorism for 40 years. We have been merciless in our pursuit and punishment of terrorists and evildoers. In fact, the same people that we used to refer to as potential terrorists and criminals before September 11, your government and other governments were referring to them as dissidents who are entitled to free speech. After September 11, you realize that these people are evildoers and should be punished. So we have been very strict with any kind of criminal in Saudi Arabia.
There's been a report that, among others, you know, the Osama bin Laden tape that was aired last week, among other things, one of the sheikhs who was discussed in that tape has been saying since then it's a duty on the part of anyone who shares the fundamentalist Muslim views to wage a jihad on anybody who attacks Afghanistan. Now, this is someone in Saudi Arabia.
I've seen the quote. It's a sheikh from a small town, not very prominent in Saudi Arabia. The important thing is what our most senior religious scholars have said. The Grand Mufti in Saudi Arabia, the head of the Supreme Religious Council in Saudi Arabia, and all of our senior ulama have been strongly condemned this action, called it a crime against humanity, called it a duty upon Muslims to search for those criminals and bring them to justice and punish them harshly. This action violates every basic principle of our faith.
Let me turn to what may be next in the war on terrorism. A lot of speculation in this country about whether after Afghanistan, the United States, the Bush administration will turn its attention to Saddam Hussein and to his regime in Iraq. What would your government's reaction be if that were to happen?
Well, it's, as you correctly pointed out, a lot of speculation. The issue of terrorism is not over. We have, besides the camps in Afghanistan, we have the infrastructure in Europe, which is just as important. Without London and Hamburg, there may not have been New York. We have a number of other areas around the world. We have 100 countries coming together in a coalition. We have unprecedented levels of cooperation in terms of information, law enforcement, and control of finances. That's going on now. Let's focus on the objective. Let's eliminate the scourge of Al-Qaeda, and let's bring those people to justice. Then we turn around and we see what other areas we have, but it doesn't really make sense to mix different issues together at this time.
You travel a great deal between your capital, Riyadh, and other parts of the world. You're in Washington a fair amount. There is, in the New York Times today, there's a quote in the story by Patrick Tyler, quoting at least one prominent Arab envoy, diplomat in Washington, as saying he's changed his mind now, that he thinks going after Saddam Hussein would no longer be the disaster that he once thought it would, that it would be something that in fact the success that the U.S. has had in Afghanistan creates a new opportunity to go after Iraq.
I don't know the gentleman that is quoted, but what I can say is in the Middle East we have a number of issues. There's the Iraq issue, which is governed by the United Nations Security Council resolutions, which has to do with Iraq's weapons of mass destruction and Saddam's violation of the United Nations sanctions, his ejection of the weapons inspectors from the United Nations. That's a totally separate problem. We have the issue of the violence between Palestinians and Israelis. We have the issue of underdevelopment in the region. We can't lump everything in and say, now that we have momentum in the war of terrorism, let's go and throw everything into the basket. We should deal with each problem based on its own set of logic and based on its own circumstances.
What do you think the public reaction in Saudi Arabia would be were the United States to turn to Saddam Hussein and to try to uproot his government?
Well, I think it's going to be, this is a hypothetical question, and I'm not trying to find a way to avoid answering it. I don't know. I think that we will cross that bridge when we get to it. We just don't see it. We don't see the U.S. moving in that direction at this time. There has to be pressure brought on Saddam Hussein to comply with the United Nations Security Council resolutions. There has to be a case made for any kind of pressure on Iraq. But we're not there yet. I think the focus right now is on eliminating the world of the scourge of Al-Qaeda.
All right, Adel Al-Jubeir is the Foreign Affairs Counselor to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
Pleasure.
Appreciate your dropping by. Just ahead, wartime politics and the prospects for Republicans in next year's elections. Plus, a high-ranking Democrat comes out in support of California Congressman Gary Condit.
The internet goes everywhere because of us. The internet is more reliable because of us.
The internet is growing because of us.
The internet is more exciting because of us. The internet is faster because of us.
The internet is better because of us.
Delivering the most content from the world's biggest network, Akamai.
Passion for the news, compassion for the story. All is on. Every weekday morning at 7 Eastern, you can depend on CNN.
Welcome to a whole new internet. An internet that's a lot faster than you're used to, and much friendlier too. Introducing the new Comcast high-speed internet. It's an internet that can do more than you ever dreamed, more easily than you ever imagined. Because we've built an internet where information and ideas, where laughter and imagination fly through 1 million miles of fiber optic cable at the speed of light. An internet that's faster than you thought possible. Up to 50 times faster than dial-up. Up to twice as fast as DSL. And we've created an even more reliable network. Built by the same neighbors who've been connecting you to what's important for over 30 years. It's a whole new world. Welcome to the new Comcast high-speed internet.
Women flock to me because I'm famous, I'm handsome, and you know I have a fabulous tan. Oh, what also seems to turn them on are my high-tech toys. You know, I got this at CompUSA, and then I added the Linksys wireless network so I can stay connected, even out here. I can, you know, read my emails and check out the news and, of course, the weather reports. They love me.
Stay connected up to 1,000 feet away with the Linksys wireless network from CompUSA.
I have the worst memory in the world.
It's really bad.
So we use the reminder button on the digital cable all the time. It pops up a little warning on the screen to tell you that this show's coming on.
You remember David Bowie?
I love David Bowie.
Big Bowie fans. It was coming on a weekend. Use the function, and we did not miss a lick of the show.
I would have died if I'd missed David Bowie.
The reminder function. Catch the shows you want before it's too late from Comcast Digital Cable.
Now, if I could just remember to use the reminder.
thanks you for making us America's most watched cable news network.
Some news to report to you here in Washington, and that is the Federal Department of Health and Human Services has just announced that the government will offer an anthrax vaccine to thousands of postal employees and employees on Capitol Hill who were exposed to anthrax 2 months ago when that letter to Senator Tom Daschle came to the Hart Senate office building and passed through one of the main post office facilities here in Washington. And I'm just quoting a press release from the Department of Health and Human Services. Quote, "The decision to use this vaccine is at the discretion of the individual in consultation with his or her physician." I want to quickly bring in CNN's medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, I said, I'm quoting HHS as saying thousands of people, so is that literally what we're potentially talking about here?
That's right, Judy. As you know, there are quite a few, over 9,000 folks, I believe, somewhere between 9 and 10,000, who are treated as exposures, being told to go ahead and take their 60 days of ciprofloxacin or other antibiotics and to try and treat a potential exposure to inhalational anthrax. As you said, they're now offering an option, as the 60-day comes due for some people, already came due for others, an option of possibly taking the vaccine as an additional prophylaxis.
We know that earlier they were talking about, I mean, the number I was hearing was just 75. They were talking about just some of the employees and police on Capitol Hill. Clearly, this is a much more expanded offer here. Sanjay, how safe is this? We know that around the time of the Gulf War and since, there's been a lot of discussion about the safety of this vaccine. What should people know about that?
Well, it's been a very contentious point in medicine, no question. Certainly there's been a lot of research on Gulf War syndrome, which is something that some people had linked actually to the anthrax vaccine. I've spoken to officials at the FDA, I've spoken to officials at Bioport, the makers of the vaccine. They say there is no conclusive link between the vaccine and Gulf War syndrome. Certainly there are lots of people in this country as well, Judy, who do receive the vaccine, usually laboratory workers, people who do come in contact with the anthrax bacteria, and very few, if any, side effects have been noted in those folks. There's about 500,000 people who have received it over a period of time. But it's a little bit difficult to say. Certainly, this particular vaccine will be treated as an investigational drug, which means that the people who do receive it will be required to fill out forms saying they recognize it is in the investigational state. They'll be followed along very closely, and certainly the vaccine protocol will be stopped if any adverse effects are noted.
All right, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thanks very much. Again, the Department of Health and Human Services announcing that thousands of postal workers and workers on Capitol Hill will be offered the opportunity to take the anthrax vaccine after their 60-day regimen of antibiotics has wrapped up.
Right.
Coming up next, we are going to talk, among other things, with Los Angeles Times reporter Ron Brownstein. He'll have some analysis on the education bill that passed Congress today and also the coming political landscape. We'll be right back.
$34, $51, $45 last month for long distance. How much are you paying? You need Sprint 500 anytime. 500 state-to-state minutes to use any day, anytime for $25 a month. $25 a month is going to help a lot of people. Sprint 500 anytime. The smarter way to cut your long-distance bill. Sign up now. Call 1-800-PIN-DROP.
Seems the older I get, the more I appreciate the simple things, like this beautiful day. And I'm not about to let having diabetes slow me down. Thank goodness Medicare reimburses for diabetes testing supplies. But getting my supplies wasn't always so simple. Making special trips, waiting to be reimbursed, those confusing forms, even finding the supplies I wanted. Thanks to Matria Healthcare, now I'm spending less time at the pharmacy and more time doing what I want to do. Matria delivers the testing supplies I want right to my door, with no forms to fill out and no upfront expenses. Why, with Matria Healthcare, getting my supplies is easy.
If you have diabetes, are 65 or over, and on Medicare, Matria Healthcare can make getting your testing supplies a lot simpler, too. Call Matria Healthcare today and choose the testing supplies you need with no confusing forms to fill out, no upfront costs. And your shipping is free. But Matria gives you more than just brand name supplies. Call Matria Healthcare now, and you'll also have your own highly trained personal care coordinator. Someone who will get to know you, the supplies you need, your testing schedule, and the brands you prefer. Matria Healthcare has been in business over 25 years. That's experience you can trust, and your satisfaction's always guaranteed. Sign up now and get this free welcome kit with a Medicare coverage guide, a logbook for tracking your blood sugar, and delicious recipes.
You know, having diabetes isn't simple, but with Matria Healthcare, getting my supplies is.
Get your testing supplies delivered free with no forms or upfront costs, plus a free welcome kit. Call Matria Healthcare today.
As winds of change blow across today's economic landscape, innovative thinkers are capturing these forces to build a stronger tomorrow. From CNN and Time, and sponsored by IBM, who are the 25 most influential business people in the world. How is their vision helping to keep our future bright? Visit cnn.com/influentials and watch CNN at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. all this week for the special series sponsored by IBM.
Congressman Gary Condit of California has picked up the official support of the incoming House Minority Whip. California Democratic Representative Nancy Pelosi has issued a short statement in support of Condit's re-election campaign. Now, Pelosi's move separates her from most other prominent Democrats, including Minority Leader Dick Gephardt and California Governor Gray Davis, who have elected to remain neutral in next spring's primary election. Condit, you will recall, has been linked to missing Washington intern Chandra Levy. Well, as we reported earlier, the Senate gave final approval today to an education bill designed to boost performance in the classroom. The measure, among other things, will require annual math and reading tests for millions of students. CNN's political analyst Ron Brownstein of the Los Angeles Times has been following this legislation closely, and he joins us now. Ron, what is this going to accomplish?
Well, Judy, this bill really is an important step, but it is only a first step. As you suggested, the heart of the bill is this new federal requirement that every student is going to have to be tested every year in reading and math from 3rd grade through 8th grade. And the goal here really is to create a demand for change. I mean, I think what we're going to see from the test is what we already know, that a lot of students and a lot of schools are not doing well. And the goal here is to build a constituency for change in the schools, in the communities. Now, the bill gives them some tools to begin making those changes. More money for poor students, more precisely targeted, specific requirements for improving failing schools. But no one should have the illusion that this has all the steps that are going to have to be taken to get those test results up. There's a lot more that's going to have to be done probably at the federal level and certainly at the local level.
Just a quick question about special education. We had Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton on the program a short time ago saying that progress that she and others wanted in that area, Senator Jeffords, didn't happen. Should they be realistic in expecting something to change?
Well, they're going to have a hard
funding for that in the next year?
You know, you can put that on a long list of issues that's going to have a hard time getting the money that their advocates think they deserve. You know, the budget has moved from enormous surplus to deficit, and there are going to be a lot of domestic issues. We're going to see this fight over and over again next year. Whether it's prescription drugs or education, you know, disabled special education, there's not really, and there's more will than wallet now, as George Bush's father once said, and so they're going to have a hard time coming up with that money.
Let me ask you a broader political question, Ron. While all of us, of course, been paying a lot of attention, understandably, to the war against terrorism, what has happened to, if you will, politics back home, the perception of politics, the perception of the political parties in this country?
You know, this is a good example today. In ordinary circumstances, without September 11th, this would have been a much bigger deal. This was Bush's top priority, this education bill, and yet it is largely overshadowed. And to some extent, that reflects what has really gone on. The agenda as the country has, at least for the time being, shifted toward security, toward national security, toward terrorism, and a lot of the domestic concerns, whether it's even the economy, have been somewhat overshadowed. Now, it's possible that if we capture bin Laden in the next few weeks or months and there are no more terrorist attacks, that by the midterm election, the focus will shift back toward these domestic concerns like health, the economy, and education. But I do think, Judy, that even if that happens in the midterm, there really has been a structural change here. And that in 2000, 2004, you're going to see what we did not see in the 90s, what was more common in the 70s and the 80s, which is a national security threshold that the presidential candidates are going to have to cross. And what has to be a little ominous for the Democrats is in some recent polling, including some by the Democratic Leadership Council, a centrist Democratic group, the Republicans are reopening big leads, Bush over the Democrats, on these issues of strength, on protecting the nation, on being able to manage the military. It's almost like reverting to the 70s and 80s pre-Clinton pattern. It could be a big hurdle for the Democrats in 2004.
Even though Democrats are very much on board and supporting the president on the war, and even though it was this president and some who supported him coming into the election last year who were arguing the United States should pull back a little bit.
It shows you the power of the executive. I think as you saw in your Gallup poll earlier today, you were talking to Frank Newport, overwhelming support for the way the war is actually being conducted. The proof is in the pudding and the performance, and Bush is reestablishing a lot of these old Republican advantages. Democrats are going to have to deal with this. Even if not in 2002, it's still going to be there as probably as a large barrier in 2004.
All right, Ron Brownstein looking into his crystal ball.
Yeah, long way away.
2020 vision.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. And finally today, a live picture from Ground Zero, the site of the collapsed World Trade Centers in New York City, where the estimated death toll now stands at just 3,001. The World Trade Center ruins offer a constant reminder, as if we needed one, of the reason America is at war. And in Afghanistan today, U.S. Marines have their own reminder of why they're there. They raised an American flag inscribed with the names of many of the victims of September 11th, as well as messages to the troops. The flag was found in the rubble at Ground Zero, and it was sent to Afghanistan after a lot of people signed it or wrote on it. It was sent at the request of the New York City Police. CNN's coverage continues now with Wolf Blitzer reports America Strikes Back. Thank you for joining us. I'm Judy Woodruff.